again, I am very excited to be here with you and to come before you with what Yahweh has prepared me with for today. And I say to you that this is the most exciting time of my life.
Oh,
that I have hope. Not that I see all things that are before me, but I have hope in that which I don't see, that which I don't understand. But that which I do see, and that which I do understand, points towards the Father's truth and the Father's hope. That everything He's promised, He will do. And so while I stand on the promises, I wait. So today, I will expound a little more on the time that we are in and have approached. Trying to analyze the time that is to come. Rabbi, too, while you're there, if you can give me a little bit more. And so, as time progresses, I will do my best to give you more of a look at where we are today. And just to kind of precede, my dreams have somewhat changed since last year. I've seen a pattern. And I just want to report, not to go into all the dreams and everything, but just to let you know that I'm still receiving dreams that are showing me patterns of what I'm understanding as to future events and things that I can understand. And so it is in my dreams that I receive hope. And that I know without a doubt that Yahweh is doing something. Exactly what He is doing. All of the details we may not understand. But He gives us enough of His word that He says what will happen. And so as we live the details of the conclusion, I know everything that we see, everything that is happening is for His purpose and for those who love Yahweh. And so, once again, I will go into what time is it now. And this is the second part of Gog and Magog. Last time I spoke, my general focus was Ezekiel chapter 38. And so today I will conclude with Gog and Magog, chapter 39. Now, I'm saying conclude, but only from these two chapters. But all of the details that we are living out at this present day are still going on. So pretty much most of the things that I will be pointing out, I can tell you now that I've already started on next month's teaching, which will be when they went into the land. I'll start from Yehoshua. And there's something that I want to point out from the book of Yehoshua, what I see very quickly, just a point. As I was looking through the book of Yehoshua, I saw that each day they went around the walls of Jericho. But before that started, they had their last Pesach on the outside, which is kind of a running question that some of the men, we've had this conversation as well as the congregation. Exactly what number year was that? This is the conversation that's still ongoing. Was it the 39th? They fought the 7 battles and then celebrated the 40th inside the land? Or did they have the 40th starting with coming out of the lands of the actual Passover, and then 40th being the last celebration? Then they go in with the spies, the 12 spies, so on and so on. But we'll kind of look at that. I've just been kind of, as I looked at Joshua, I kind of saw some things there. One being that how many times did they go around the walls? 7 times, right? 7 times. What did they have when they went around the walls 7 times? They had the priest in front with what? Shofars, right? Mm-hmm. And so as they blew the trumpets, there were 7 trumpets that blew, and the people will shout. And then on the 7th day, it was something different. And as I was looking at that, I noticed Revelation. I'm like, where did I see this before? Revelation, for 7 years, there's something that's taking place. There's 7 trumpets. For the entire 7-year period, they also have 7 bowls. And so, Yeshua being the 7th, he brings in the last 7 plagues. So I multiplied that, then I added. So I said, well, it's not really 49 then plus 1. Then I said, well, it's the 7 days, because that can only count as 7 days. But then there was 7 trumpets. And so I looked for that, and I said, okay. That was pointing to Yeshua's coming. So from the very beginning, when they entered into Jerusalem, 7 trumpets represented the 7 years. And then the last time around, they blew 7 times, represented Yeshua, with the last 7 plagues. And so, as I analyzed it, I'm like, wow, this is much, and quite some more. So I'll save that until I get there. Hopefully, the next time I minister, I'll have it all together. But I saw so much that I began to include it here. And only this morning I said, you know what, it's too much there. Let me just save that. Because I don't want to cut it short, which I was doing. I was going to just give you what I gave you. I said, but it's too much there. For them to go into the promised land, everything was exactly where we are today. A mirror image. Let's start with even the name, Yehoshua, son of none. Perpetuity. So let me just get on into my message for today. So as we anticipate the arrival of our Mashiach, there are some provisions that he has already put in place. And so as we have, okay, there we go. As we have the provisions of Yahweh in place, we have to be able to look at what is taking place, what is going on, and realize that Yahweh is doing something. We have the conclusion of what he's doing, but it's the doing something that has the not so clear. Because when you're in the forest, you don't recognize the forest because of the trees. It's just so many there, you don't realize that you're in the forest. Because you see nothing but trees. But if you ever get a sky view of what the forest and the magnitude of nothing but trees for miles and miles, then you understand that unless I understand direction, I understand my way out, my path out, I'm just lost. So I need direction, I need a plan, or I can find myself walking in circles. And so, to start out, I just want to show something that is taking place. And as we see it, it becomes a little clearer as time progresses. And so, I want to begin today with someone else's vision over in Israel as a witness of what is taking place. Now, I will say this. I said to some that were here, if you were here in 2008, I will say it again, that I had a dream. And in that dream, I was told by a messenger that Yeshua HaMashiach had entered the earth. Now, this may be the first time that some of you have heard this. I haven't talked about it for quite some time. But for those who were here during that time, I was quite stirred, I would say. So much so that when I shared that after the dream, someone who wasn't here came in the next week and said, I have a message for you. He said, I was on my way to your home earlier this week, and I took the bus, and I got off, and then I got right back home. He said, I was so shaken to give you this message, but he said, I was told to give you a message. He said that Yeshua HaMashiach is here. Now this was after my dream. Rabbi 2 and my chauffeur was plastered into the wall. We were not in this land. And all that took place, the children were dancing. And it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I mean, they came out of the building coiled and just started going into a monstrous circle because it was so many of them that I never seen the end of them coming out of the building. So they just immediately went out as far as they could and they started circling. And they began to build circle, layer after layer after layer. And they were just dancing in rhythm, and we were just enjoying ourselves. And somebody came to me and said, Mashiach is here, in my dream, and showed me an emblem and said, look, what's on the building? It's there. It's the sign of the Mashiach. And my rabbi's chauffeur was plastered into the wall, and they were golden. And I recognized it, and I looked up and I said, wow, how did our chauffeurs get up there? But the chauffeur was almost big as this building. So for me to recognize it, and it was golden, and they were both going upward and into the building with the letters and everything. That was my dream. But then the other brother shared his dream with me. And I'm like, how could this be unless it's from Yahweh? So if you're hearing this for the first time, not to go into all of the detail, much more still. Oh, just one other piece I got to say. In that same dream and vision, I saw someone who wasn't there. I saw the colors, and I didn't see the person themselves. But I saw my son and daughter-in-law with a baby. Ephraim was on their side. It wasn't him. But the very stroller or stroller they had is what I saw in my vision. It was brown and pink dots. And it was given as a gift to my daughter-in-law. And I saw that 2 years before she was born. And that was Elise. And so as I revealed to them what I saw, they weren't pregnant yet. And then later on, she was born. And so, just to move on, I'm just a simple messenger, just trying to give and be obedient to Yahweh's word. So I want to share with you someone else's vision. As I go into this is a young boy whose age is 15, and he died. His name is Nathan. He died, he was clinically dead, and 15 minutes later, he was revived. They were able to, he came back. I don't know all of the story, but it is a video. Some of you may have seen it. But I just took a little excerpt out of it to share today, just to show you. And I said last time when I spoke from Ezekiel chapter 38, some things that took place during that time. So here is the other part. And it reads, 15-year-old Nathan's near-death experience happened on the first night of this past Sukkot, which was also the night of the final blood moon. At the home of his uncle, where he went to visit for the holiday, Nathan began to feel unwell. He described suddenly shivering and felt cold in his arms and legs. Nathan decided to go and rest, and in those moments felt his soul exit his body through his nose. Among the various spiritual messages experienced by Nathan, which can be heard beginning at the 35th minute mark of the video, the young boy speaks about the Messiah standing on the Mount of Olives and determining who is worthy to be saved. Nathan described this future scene, saying that the mountain simply opened. It split in two. Though not by earthquake and not by atomic bomb, this vision matches a prophetic or prophecy in Zechariah that the Mount of Olives, located just east of the old city of Jerusalem, will split and create a valley. Oh, yeah. Now, the last little piece there is the website that I pulled this from, and it's Jerusalem Post, basically. So this is something that was posted in Jerusalem, and they translated so that, because the video is in Hebrew, So they did put the words below so that we could understand what was going on. This was a 2-hour visit to a synagogue, and the person that you see to his right is the rabbi of that particular synagogue. And notice, this is not a messianic group. As well, the young man, he is not a believer. He didn't go to synagogue. He is very secular, raised secular. But after this vision and the contacts that were made, he now ends up in a synagogue explaining his, well, sharing his dream, his vision, thank you. And sharing that vision, the rabbi was also interpreting using the scriptures of the coming of Mashiach. And so I shared before how 5,700 rabbis and rabbis in the U.S., I think they were in the U.S. the last time they spoke, came together and declared that it is now time for Mashiach, and that we should pray for Yahweh to send the Mashiach now. And that's what they broke out in the song, send Mashiach now, send Mashiach now. And this is the cry of Israel because of the events of what is taking place. Because on an ordinary day, things are happening. They're being slaughtered off. And as I began to look at this, I'm saying, wow, the same thing is happening to us over here. And they're saying to all the world, pray for us because of the evils that are being done to us. But then I looked at that and said, who's praying for us? Yes, I'll pray. But who's praying for us? Because of all of the evils. Instead of finding fault with the evil that is being done, they're finding fault with why it was done. He ran. He had a hair comb in his pocket. Nobody knew what that was, or a wallet, or I felt threatened. And so all of what is going on, I see something in it. And so what I see is what I will share today. I don't need to go through all of the particulars or the events, but I will now go through enough information that you will begin to understand that something is going on. I'm convinced of what's going on. As I told my daughter, I'm probably no more good over here in this country. I have no aspirations of climbing upwardly in this corporate world or obtaining the American dream. I don't have that anymore. It's God. It's all God. I don't have no aspirations of becoming the CEO of this big company and becoming rich and famous in this nation. Now, at one time, that was my drive. And I was going for it. My family, we had a business in Washington, D.C., and our receipts were tripling every year. And the year we left, we were just under 6 figures, which means the next year, we would have broke way through. But that's not my drive any longer. And so, some of you remember that. I mean, that's where my wife came home and we were only living, and my children, they would help me work in the laboratory sometimes. I would get up in the morning and head for work and kiss my wife goodbye and just went into the next room. Because that was a beautiful time of my life, because I was able to bring my work home. I spent so much time at the laboratory outside, and now I was able to bring it home and spend time with my family while working. And so my wife, we were able to bring her home, and we were all there in the house. My children, they would come and do what they could, help me make models and different things that they just had fun doing. And you know, it was making money. But I don't have that drive. What drives me now is the Torah. That's all I'm good for. So if you ask me something and share a dream with me, 100% of the time I'm going to see Torah. So with that said, let's look at some time and events. So I'm going to look at a timeline that goes back 2,600 years and even more. But what you will see is very easy to see. And so this is one time where I put it all in one little document. This is stuff that I've been teaching ever since I began to start to understand this. Start to begin to understand timeline. And so what does it do for me? It gives me an understanding that whatever Yahweh says he will do, I now have proof he is doing it. Because I'm looking at the past and saying, okay, yes, that's done. Next, yes, that's done. Yes, that's done. And so it doesn't make me any brainiac or anything. I'm just simply reading his word. And I know it's real. I know it's true. And so with this truth, I'll just run through some things that maybe you will also begin to see and agree. Starting with, like I said, going back 2,600 years. So we're going back about roughly 600 years before Yeshua even came. Okay? The last 2,000 years since he's been here. All right, so 586 BC, the Babylonian fall, captivity. Okay? And in that we have one prophet called Daniel. Chapter 9. Yahweh said 70 weeks to bring in righteousness. I'll stop there because I've taught on all of this very extensively, all of this. Just to remind you now that he said in that, I'm giving you time and understanding that the Mashiach will be cut off in the 69th week. But in the middle of the week, so I had to realize that if he died at the 69th week, they were continuing. So they got 1 week to now conclude what? 70 weeks. So now he says in the middle of the week. So what really took place is Mashiach died. And then after Mashiach died, in the middle of the week, Jerusalem was destroyed. And so the temple was destroyed. That was monumental. Yes, it was. For the place of sin, the place that can absorb sin, forgive sin, was no longer. Excuse me. The very people who did not receive the Messiah, who was able to atone for sin, they killed. And then the very thing that they trusted in and believed in, the Torah and the temple, too, was now destroyed by fire. So what does that really leave now? If your total number is 70 weeks, that only leaves a half week remaining. So if Yeshua died in the 69th week, and then Jerusalem was killed off, burnt in that half week, we have a half week which remains. And so what took place then was the 4 horsemen. Now the 4 horsemen goes back even further. But I just want to start here so that it's not too big, but at least you can witness to these 4 horsemen that poverty, disease, famine, death, the 4 horsemen? Had it really ended? Mm-mm. They still ride. And so we've seen it even to this day. We had World War I, World War II, and we're looking at World War III. That's what man calls it. But I'm here to give you a little bit more information. And so as I continue on, here is what Yahweh gave us, was 4 kingdoms. And again, this was another one of my dreams that Yahweh said to me, understand the numbers. And this is one where he had a man, and his hand, I saw his hand as he dipped them into a pool of water. And the blue was so blue and inviting. But his hand was gigantic. That the man, and that's all I saw, was just the upper torso. But it wasn't a man. It was numbers down from his head down. And he kept dipping into the water and said, look at the numbers. And I began to focus on the numbers. 2, 3, 2, 3. I searched the scriptures to understand all, and just a short, quick of it is that Yeshua said, in the 2nd day, I will return to you. I will revive you. This is what Yeshua said. I will revive you in 2 days. What is 2 days? 1,000 years as 1 day, right? And he says, I will stand you as a mighty army on the 3rd day. And so, not to keep explaining, I'm just kind of hitting things that I've talked about in the past. Matthew chapter 24, the parable of the fig tree, and understanding of the parable of the fig tree is another time that he said to the disciples, or the taught ones, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, he concluded by saying, understand the parable of the fig tree. And what was the fig tree? Number one, we can take the fig leaf and go back to the garden. So this is why I told you. This goes back even further. But I want to keep it in kind of a tight little ball so that we can look at it from pieces, but we can understand going all the way back. You got to go all the way back. So Yeshua then speaking to the fig tree and cursing the fig tree, one thing that Rabbi 2 brought out in that was that it was out of season. Why would he come and curse a fig tree that was not supposed to give fruit at that season? And then myself, as I looked into these things here, this is one reason I love the Midrash, because so much comes out when questions and things come out and points come out. It gives me an opportunity to go back and search. So that's why I say I love questions. But anyway, I don't want to keep this too long. But anyway, the parable of the fig trees, the short part is that when you see that take place, understand that summer is near. What is this? When you see the stick of Yosef, not Yosef, but the budded stick of Aaron, and all that takes place, that's Israel, the land, in its infant stage. Understand that summer is near. So there's 2 times that the figs really blossom, is just before Passover, which is only enough, it's a minute amount, but it's good, it's good. But it's the summer that brings tenfold, which is enough to feed a lot. So that's kind of in a nutshell the fig tree, that there's 2 times of harvest, but the second harvest is the greatest. So then after that, Yeshua is pointing to the tribulation, then the great tribulation. And the 4 kingdoms, the 4th one is Rome. And then there's another kingdom that comes in which is using the man, going back to the man in Babylon. So the statue that I often refer to in the book of Daniel, in the feet, the stone topples the statue. And so as that stone topples the statue, we know the stone of stumbling is Yeshua. So this is all a timeline for us. If that's the case, then the extension of Rome, which is the clay and the iron, which doesn't really adhere to one another, that is toppled by the stone, if this is the time that we're in, according to Yahweh, who gave Daniel this dream almost 600 years before Yeshua came, then if that's the time that we're in, the stone of stumbling is getting ready to topple the giant, and the end of the kingdom of man is approaching. And so we have the beast that was and is not. Even he is the eighth. That one goes to the end of the millennial reign, because he's tied, he's thrown into the abyss for 1,000 years. After the 1,000 years, he must be set free for a little while. So he is and is not. Kind of familiar with Yahweh. He copies everything that Yahweh does. And so now the destruction of Damascus, we receive the false prophet. Behind that, the two prophets come and protect Israel, the land. The mark of the beast, another plague that will be received. Everyone who receives the mark of the beast shall die, according to the Scriptures. And behind that, while all of these things are still in tandem, they're working in conjunction, we get into the latter part that are prophecies of end times. So then we have the Gog and Magog war, Revelation chapter 9, verse 16, gives us the exact number, which is 200 million men that will go against the land of Israel, which is the sign and beginning of the millennial reign. And so, as we continue, I want to show you another army that you may not be familiar with. You've seen it. You've heard about it. But I kind of put together a little document to kind of show them in one place. And this is not a concluded list. Yahweh's army, or armies, Joel chapter 2, verse 25. Then I shall repay you the years that the swarming locust has eaten the crawling locust, and the consuming locust, and the gnawing locust, my great army which I sent among you. And so as I began to look at the army of Yahweh that was happening, and that we are seeing and not seeing, hearing and not hearing, I thought I'd put together a little chart to prove to you beyond a doubt that we are in a very special time of history. So I used only 5 categories: insect, birds, land beasts, sea creatures, and weather. Like I said, this is not a concluded list. This is only just a few things. Insects. We have locusts, bees, hornets, wasps, flies. We've seen these in the plagues that Yahweh has used way back in history. So when we see this today, we need to recognize what? Yahweh's army. That's the reason I use Joel chapter 2, verse 25, to show you that these are his army. So when you see, like in the past months, last year and the year before, you saw the locusts that infested Madagascar, Africa, the land of Israel. You saw bees. We're hearing about the die-offs of bees, and we're hearing about modified bees and all stuff that's going on, and hornets, and so you understand. So let's look at the birds falling out the air. We see just different things where even Yahweh says, come and feast on the kings of the earth. And he called for every sort of bird and diseases and things that will come out from it. See, they fly, so they can deliver droppings of seed, droppings of diseased waste, right? And so stuff is just happening, and we're not realizing what's going on. Okay, let's look at the land beasts. There's a time where he sent in female bears. And I think this one I'll bring out a little bit more and go into Yehoshua. But this too was at that same time where he sent in 2 female bears, children who was mocking Elisha. And as they were mocking him, I saw that 42 children, 42, what else do I know with 42? 3.5 years. 42 children and a female, or two female bears slaughtered them. Moving on, lions, snakes, vapors. We can go back with Shaul, Paul, and see he was a servant and attacked by a viper. But Yahweh used that to make him look like a god. Because the people who saw the viper hook onto him, bite him, come out of the fire, he shook it off and lived. So now it opened up a door for him. And so to kind of just keep on going, and this kind of goes into future stuff even still. The Leviathan, the great fish going back to Noah, and the weather, rain, fire, sulfur, smoke, earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, hurricanes, dust storms. All these are things of the first trumpet. And so as we continue, I want to stress to you that what we are now looking at is the 10 plagues in front of us. I gave you a few times the events of the woes and time value for each one. The first woe, 5 months. Second woe, 28 months. Third woe, 9 months. So kind of continuing on with that, I want you to really understand that the time element of Yahweh's wrath is upon us. And if we are in the first woe, of which is what I think we are in, and as I spoke last time, I said, but I can only confirm it once I see certain events take place or not take place, because it is what tells me yes. And so what told me the first woe has started is Sukkot, going back to the young man who died. What night was that? The first night of Sukkot. What was the sign? Of the blood moon. what did he see? Yeshua, of whom he didn't believe in. Where was Yeshua? Standing on the Mount of Olives. What took place? The Mount of Olives opened up. So is that what it's going to be, or is that a shadow of what it will be? I don't know. But if that is what it was going to be, because Yahweh said they didn't know until the flood happened.
That's right.
So here we are in this day and time, and he says they won't know, because it would be as the days of Noah. Right. Learn the parable of the fig tree.
Right. Right.
So in other words, he who has an ear, let him hear. And then he said, even in Revelation, let him understand. I'm sorry, let me retract that. He said in that one, let him hear. And I notice where he always say, let him hear and understand. But in Revelation, he didn't quite say we would understand. And so, here we are in Revelation chapter 9, 16, and 21. I just want to bring up some evidence of what I think is happening and will happen. So when I tell you about the different signs and what is happening during the first woe, second woe, third woe, I'm not trying to be so deep and prophetic that, wow, Rabbi is deep. No, I'm just reading. And I'm believing. And so he's given us enough information that I'm just putting together a puzzle that he has given us. And so if that made me look smart, thank you. Because you know, his wisdom, his Torah. Oh, such a great people that have their Elohim with them, the Torah. Revelation chapter 9, verses 14 through 18. Saying to the sixth messenger who had the trumpet, release the four messengers, those having been bound at the great river Euphrates, and the four messengers, those having been prepared. Listen to this. Prepared. When do you prepare? Before.
Right.
Prepared for the hour and the day and the month and the year. No one knows the day or the hour or the year or the... were released to kill a third of mankind. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. And I heard the number of them, a third, he says it twice, confirming, of mankind was killed by these three plagues, by the fire and the smoke and the sulfur which came out of their mouths. Who is the there? The there is those who were locked in the abyss or in the earth. Yahweh said it would be as the days of Noah. These are the ones who defiled themselves when they came and took the daughters of men. They were called the sons of Elohim, who saw that they were fair and began to take wives of their choosing. They defiled themselves because they were eternal beings, and they defiled themselves with mortal beings. So therefore, they were locked away. I could continue with that, but let me move on. Chapter 16, verses 12 through 14. And the sixth messenger, recognize which one it is, poured out his bowl. The first one was a trumpet. The second one is what? The bowl. So we had 7 trumpets and 7 bowls. Yehoshua, 7 trumpets, 7 days. And then on the 7th day, they blew 7 times, and the walls came tumbling down.
Oh, yeah.
I see something in this. And so that's why I'm so excited, because I see what has been done, and I hear and see what he says will be done, and I just simply believe it. I told y'all, I'm not so deep. I just believe. Yahweh's Torah will make you look smart. And the sixth messenger poured out his bowl, and on the great Euphrates, and its water was dried up in order to prepare the way of the sovereigns from the east. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the great dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits, and as frogs. Unclean spirits, as frogs. Where do we see frogs before? In the 10 plagues. Right? Very good. I love Talmudine. For they are spirits. Now he's identifying them. It's not really frogs. For they are spirits of demons doing signs, which go out to the sovereigns of the entire, get this, entire world. Why? To gather them to battle, to gather them to the battle of that great day of Yahweh, the Almighty. So here's the day of the Lord. This is it. This is what they all were saying. Right. When they perceived it to be Sunday, they don't know that they were really talking about his day is really the day of wrath. Right. You can't explain it no better than what he says. And so here we see that Yahweh says he's going to gather them to battle. Now, chapter 21, verses 9 and 10. And one of the 7 messengers, notice now we're on the 7th messenger, who held the 7 bowls filled with 7 last plagues. So here's your 10. The first 3, here's the last 7. Last plagues came to me and spoke with me, saying, come, I shall show you the what? Bride, the Lamb's bride. There's no doubt of what is being talked about now. And he carried them away and he carried me away, Yochanan, in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the set apart Jerusalem, descending out of the heavens from Elohim. There is no doubt the conclusion, not the end, but certain events bring about. And so as we move through, today I want to also now bring in current events. As we have been experiencing some things on domestic level, nationally, experiencing things internationally as well. I've just been looking at news articles to kind of keep up. As I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm just a watchman. I'm trying to see what's going on around me and in the world, so I know and understand what's happening, when it's going to happen, what Yahweh's words are, what is he doing. I can see what the world is doing, but I want to also know and understand, because he said, he that has an ear, let him hear. And so, as I began to look, I saw this article that says, the UN officially declared the beginning of World War III. Well, why didn't we hear about it? It's been going on. It's just adding to. Matter of fact, I told you. I told you that we have entered into World War III, as they would call it. I don't really call it World War III. I would refer to it. But to refer to it as Yahweh would call, as they also call it in the Greek, the Battle of Armageddon, or in the Hebrew, HaGoyim. HaGoyim, thank you. And so as we see these things and these events taking place, understand that everything Yahweh said is happening. What has already happened is happening. And so if I can see what has already happened, I can read what he says will happen. I can read the future. Now, I may not get the time accurate as I want to, because Yahweh is doing what he will do when he will do it. But I'm definitely going to be looking at what's going on and trying to understand it. So this is why I have no fear of the time that's here. I have no fear. Even if I should fall during this time, expire, end, I have no fear. I have no fear of death. I have no fear. So there is actually nothing that even the police can do that Yahweh can't protect me from or even allow. And so I have no fear. But what it shows me is that yes, the time is now. And so as I read this, these are news clippings that I pulled off the net, as you know. And here is the only address that I'll give, because it's still pretty much the same, but I'm going to go through some more and just show you, but different articles from different places using the same and different other articles. It's going to sound like it's from one source, but it's just showing you how closely knitted that these things are happening. And the time that these things are happening, this article is 3 days ago. Today, we can say as December the 5th, 2015. The date on this article is December the 2nd, 2015. And 1 and 2 days away from each other, day 1, day 2, day 3, all brought different articles. And as I said, this is the only time you'll see the web link up there, but just know it's different articles, just pulling out little pieces so that I can just kind of present so you can see something that I see. And if I don't read these names correct, then, forgive me on that. The chairman of the Security Council of the United Nations, Rolanda Mermoke, official, declared from New York on Wednesday that after World War II ended, several countries had decided or declared against the forces called itself Islamic State or ISIS. An association of countries was held, concludes, the U.S., Russia, Germany, France, Iraq, Iran, all members of the UN, that is, had agreements together to destroy ISIS after they attacked, get this, France and Lebanon. So they attack a European nation, and now we're going to declare war? Okay, let me continue. According to the Security Council of the UN, the war, which involves 5 countries or more, is considered a world war. Similarly, the president of Security Council of the UN announced that ISIS will be attacked in next hours, or the next hours, and will not stop until the supreme commander of ISIS, Abu Bakr al Baghdadi surrenders. And so, in other words, the Security Council of the UN has now declared World War III. And they said, as a result of the attack on France. And so they defined what declares war. When 5 countries or more are at war that have been attacked, they declare that to be world war. And so it was important for me to list that because that gave the definition of world war. See, I've been telling y'all before, remember I said the coalition of the U.S. had, they're saying 65 nations now together with them fighting ISIS. They started last year, now Russia came in, China is in, and oh yeah, Great Britain just had their parliament vote, and they had 300 and something yays to 200 and something nays, which means Great Britain has now coming into the war, and have also declared war against ISIS. And so the sides are being divvied up as to who and what. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here's an image of after the UN said, we will attack. They did. This is a picture of Syria. And so, understanding too the prophecy concerning Damascus, which is the capital of Syria. You're watching the fall of Damascus. I'll go into it even further. But here's also a closer look, which is before that particular one. That was listed on the 2nd of December. And this image here is a few weeks back. Notice a man in the bottom. He's just, out for another day's work. He got his gun on his shoulder. And this is how we live now. And so this is what, if you've seen the pictures of the people coming out of the Middle East, or Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, or more so Iraq. Iran is kind of standing, but there's a lot of movement. And I was showing my wife the other day how they were in droves. I mean, it was like just thousands and thousands of them. They can't go back to this. Where would they live? So all of the European countries are trying to say, well, we will take in so many, and this country was so many, and then they close the door all of a sudden because, they're seeing that there's people getting through and who are what they call terrorists that are among them. The United States said they were taking 100,000. And so you have these refugee camps that are being built, and you have people that are staying there and saying, we're going to fight. So more of the headlines and current events still of the same time frame just this week. And here's something. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered Russian military forces to prepare for World War III, after warning the Minister of Defense to prepare for Syria to become the central battleground between NATO, Western allies countries, and Russia. Here's another. According to a report by the Ministry of Defense, Putin's order was given following assurances from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israel would not interfere in a Russian-U.S. war in the Middle East. Wow. So they already know what's going to happen. I've been telling you. Here's another. And like I told you, these are not all connected. These are different articles, little pieces I just wanted to bring out. So the Russian Colonel Vladimir Zernovsky proposed to drop nuclear bomb on the Strait of Bosphorus of Turkey. Next one. And as if these provocations by the Obama regime against the Federation, Russia, and those with it, were not by themselves sufficient enough to cause the issuing of this war order, this report also notes NATO's announcement today that they were inviting the Balkan country of Montenegro to join their military alliance against Russia is cause enough for a massive war to begin. So if you're hearing what I'm hearing, the words such as nuclear, bomb, it don't take a scientist to understand. When you start speaking these words, recorded or printed, that it is taken well as threats. And so no country will sit idly by and wait for you to nuke them. So let's look further into Damascus, the sign of Damascus. Isaiah chapter 17, verse 1 and verse 7. Then I'll go to Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 27. The message concerning Damascus. See, Damascus ceased to be a city and shall become a heap of ruin. Verse 7. In that day, man shall look, hear me well. Man shall look to his maker, and his eyes turn to the set-apart one of Israel. Who is the set-apart one of Israel? Yeshua. Who will they look to? They will look to Yeshua. Because they're going to be looking for Yahweh. Come. Send us the Mashiach now. Send us the Mashiach now. We need you. This is the cry that is going on in the earth now. I told y'all, 5,700 rabbis came together and declared, send the Mashiach now. We need the Mashiach. I'm just giving you examples of what's going on in the earth. Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 27. Look what Yahweh says he will do. And I will kindle a fire in the wall of Damascus, and it shall consume the palaces of Ben-Hadad. And so when I looked at this, and I won't go into detail with what's to follow, I'm going to show you a lot of the valleys Yahweh uses. He uses timeline. He's reminding us of things. So when he says, consume the palace of Ben-Hadad, that goes back to Jezebel. Remember Yahweh said about her that she will be eaten by the dogs, right? I'm not going to take time to go into that. I'll be talking about all of this so you can see how it was shadows of things to come. And so now Yahweh is talking about Damascus kindling a fire in the wall. Why? What's on the other side of the wall? Jerusalem. Guess who's inside of Damascus? United States, Russia, China, all of the ones who have now gathered for battle. I want you to really follow my next words and understand that as I show you the details, not from my words, but from Yahweh's words, you'll know what I know. I can tell you what I know. I know his words are true. So let me continue so you can see concerning Damascus. Let's look at the valleys. Jeremiah chapter 19, verse 6. Therefore see, the days are coming, declares who? Yahweh, that this place shall no more be called Tophelet, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter. Why the valley of slaughter? Because there will be a great slaughter there. Joel chapter 3, verse 2. Then I shall gather all Gentiles and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and I shall enter into judgment with them there. Why will he do that? For my people, my inheritance, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided up my land. Chapter 3, verse 12. Let the Gentiles be aroused, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I shall sit to judge all the Gentiles on every side. Amos chapter 1, verse 5. And I shall break the bar of Damascus, and cut off the inhabitants from the valley of Aven, and the one who holds the scepter from Beth Edom. And the people of Aram shall go exile to Kir, said Yahweh. Are we seeing that now? Oh yeah. Aram, Armenians, are coming out of Assyria, or Syria, of which the scriptures speak of Aram, its remnant being in Syria. So all that is happening now, there's a group already exiting. So the exodus have happened. It is happening according to Yahweh's word. And the people of Aram shall exile to Kir. Hosea chapter 1 verse 5. And it shall be in that day that I shall break the bow of Israel in the land, the valley of Israel. Now each of these have significant, yes, Yahweh shows. Each of these have significant times and events that pass and future. Okay? Yahweh sows. Hallelujah. And Yahweh sows. He sows out and he gathers in. So all of these are very, 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 very prophetic. So I don't have time to go into each one. Just understand that Yahweh has written across the generations for us. He's speaking to us. This is why when I speak about this, I speak with such confidence, because I know what Yahweh is saying is true. Not so much that I'm that smart, and I keep driving that. I'm trying to tell you that I trust his word so much that I'm willing to be wrong and his words be true. So I'm going to tell you that, yeah, I get it wrong sometimes. But if I stick with his words just a little bit closer to understand that as the events begin to unfold, I say, yes, here's another. Yes, it's happening. Yes. So Habakkuk, once again, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. I stand at my watch and station myself, the watchtower, and wait. I can't say it no better than that. I am in wait mode. I am no good for nothing else but waiting for the Mashiach. I have great expectation that I will see him soon. And I really don't care how long it takes, because I know he's coming.
Hallelujah.
I know without a doubt that he is coming to see what he says to me and what to answer when I am reproved. And Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and inscribe it on tablets, so that he who reads it runs. Believe it, run with it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. So he's not coming out of his appointed times. And speak of the end and does not lie. If it lingers, wait for it. For it shall certainly come. It shall not delay. So with that, I will conclude in my next few frames, and I think it should be about 5 frames here. I will go into Ezekiel, which is my focus, and conclude the last chapter, not that it's the last chapter of Ezekiel, but the 39th chapter of the book of Ezekiel. Verses 1 through 5. And just to also remind you that March 15th of this present year, I told you last time that basically 3 nations, 3 frogs, 3 nations had their fingers on the button and were about to press. The UK was getting ready to hit Russia. Russia responded by figuring out their nuclear coordinations. And then the U.S., so that's 2, the U.S. also threatened world war by targeting all the continents. And that was enough to stalemate nuclear war happening March 15th. It was supposed to happen. And so I wondered why it didn't happen. And then when we got to Sukkot, I wondered why that didn't happen. But it did. Because here's a person who died, came back and said, I saw the Mashiach on the Mount of Olives at the last blood moon. And the Mount of Olives opened up. And as the Mashiach stood at the Mount of Olives, he was judging the nations and the individuals, saying who was worthy to be saved. And so the other thing that I picked up on, that was around Passover. So it was the wrong timing. And so Russia was too far away, and it wasn't the correct appointed time. That was the spring feast fulfilled. The fall feasts are supposed to be fulfilled now. So during Sukkot, what happened? We had 5 days of continued rain. So much so that we who were dwelling in safety, All we could do was notice the rain. We couldn't do a whole lot of outside activity because of what was taking place out there. But we could see, as we got back, we saw different reports of South Carolina and different places, how the floodings were happening. But we were dwelling in safety.
As we enter in your courts, with our voice singing blessings and glory. In our hearts we draw nigh.